Hey guys, good morning. It's Tim O'Connor once again coming at you with what I'm calling coffee and freedom. And look, most of us have coffee, but not a lot of us have freedom, and that's an absolute reality. So what I am trying to do is put a positive face on people that are fighting for liberty. I'm trying to let people know things that they can do. And here are people, a group of people that are already doing things. There's ways to help them. There's ways, and by helping them, guys, bottom line, by helping them, you help spread liberty. You could come up with your own ideas, bring it on this show, share it with everybody. And guys, remember, success is not final, failure is not fatal. It's absolutely the fact that courage to continue is what counts. So, guys, check this out. Joining me today, Victoria Alexander, Bryan Stascavage, Theresa Gosart, William Van Helmond. I always want to mess with you about. I want to call you William Van Helmond. I get it all kind of like crazy, right?
Yep.
Oh, all right, Jeanette's already out there saying hello. So, guys, what I'm going to start off with, and I have a feeling other people are going to be joining us. But what I want to start off with, introduce yourself. We'll kind of try to limit this piece of it to introduce yourself, tell people what you're doing, and let's get around the table. And then we'll start opening things up for discussion. So we'll start in order on my screen. Victoria, what are you up to spreading liberty? How's that going?
Hi there. Well, I announced very kind of informally a couple of days ago that I'll be seeking the nomination for Congress, House of Representatives in New York 19, like I did last election season. It's an uphill battle though because we lost the ballot line, and the number of signatures that I'll have to collect is prohibitive. But here I am, but I wanted to announce now because I want a platform to talk about the vaccines and the mandates. So
Yeah,
here I am.
that's great. We want to be careful when we talk about the vaccine per se, but mandates are, I think, wide open for discussion. Okay, so when we and I know that you're a scientist, and I know you got things to say about the vaccine, and I don't want to limit your voice on that, but I think that social media has a strange response to these things, and I think that we've got to temper our comments about it. Our personal feelings are important. Um, your notion and your understanding of the vaccine is better than everyone else's, but that doesn't mean social media is going to accept it. So they should, if they want to talk to you about a vaccine, they should reach out to you directly, right?
Are you afraid of the word being said on your show or what?
Am I afraid? I'm not afraid of words. That's not the issue. The issue is reach on social media. I think that that's what we have. One of the many battles that we're fighting.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it
I
does.
think we're facing an existential crisis with this.
I think we could definitely say that. I agree with that. We certainly absolutely are, and I accept that. Let's work our way around. And look, Paul Grindle just joined us, but Bryan Stascavage, what have you been up to spreading liberty?
Yes, my name is Bryan Stascavage. Thank you so much, Tim, for having me on today. I think this show is a great idea. I just moved to Hartwick. I just moved to Otsego County, upstate New York. I'm a writer by trade. I like journalism, opinion writing, and so this election, I've actually been spending just doing a lot of research, getting to know what local politics is like. That's my interest. It's where my specialty and my degree is, and so I just want to put the word out there that if you have something that you think is important that's not being reported by more traditional news sources, drop me a line. I'm a former Intel analyst. I'm all about secrecy and confidentiality. I will keep your name out of it if you need to. And so my hope is to start up a newsletter of sorts for this area. Thank you so much.
I think one of the things we're pointing at here is alternative forms of communication can be very effective at helping spread liberty. Let's be honest about that. We have William Van Helmond. What have you been up to?
Good morning, Tim. Thanks again for having me on your show. I think this is my second time. I'm a unity guy. I'm a Reformation man. I like to fix things that I see are broken, and our liberty in our country is broken and needs to be fixed. One of the first people I met joining the Libertarian Party roughly about two and a half years ago was online with us, Mr. Paul Grindle. I was very blessed to meet him and go through ideologies, and they helped me in my first campaign. I became the chair of the Suffolk County Libertarian Party, where I'm in a better position to spread the word of liberty and get into the media and get into the local politics. I'm also on the committee with the LPNY, taking it to a higher level. I also formed two what I call coalitions, TPC, third party coalition, where I'm working with other third parties in getting the word out of liberty and their messages also to create a larger base and to compete with the duopoly. And then another one I formed is called UAM, which is United Against Mandates, where I brought the Libertarian Party with Liberty into a leadership type program with other leaders in nonprofits in the community, even concerned moms of Konyk, utilizing the basis of our memberships to increase the outreach against mandates, which is against our freedoms and our choice. I'm also running a write-in campaign, although I was on the ballot as a registered libertarian because of the unconstitutional lawsuit filed against us, which we ended up losing, and we will probably appeal, but don't quote me on that. The thing is, I'm not going to sit down and take it. I'm going to run as a constitutional right of mine as a write-in campaign. And as I'm doing it, I'm talking about liberty. I'm talking about suppression. I'm talking about doctrine of free will. I'm talking about the NAP program, non-aggression principle, you name it, I'm doing it. And as a chairman of the county, I've actually started attacking the elected officials through Rob Arrigio's program with legislation. And I've successfully plowed into the Suffolk County Legislature as well as the town supervisors. And I have some people now on record on their voting rights for liberty and equality for all, which stands for all parties. So that's what I'm doing at this moment.
I think that's wonderful. Theresa Gosart, the chair of the Tioga County Libertarian Party, is also joining us this morning. Thank you for being here, Theresa. Talk about what you're up to.
It's Theresa Gosart.
I said it wrong. I do that all the time.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Well, like don't mind the haters. Just make sure they pronounce your name right. So I am the chair of Tioga County, a little county in the southern tier in New York, and we are just basically trying to build a base so we can get people elected and doing a lot of outreach. And I am also admin of one of the groups and founder of one of the groups for our local school district. OACSD stands up to stand up for parents' rights, essentially, if they want their kids to, not be vaccinated to go to school, because about 2 years ago, Cuomo passed a law that, well, not Cuomo, the whole body of state legislature passed a law that there are no religious exemptions, only medical exemptions to vaccines.
Can I jump in for a second? When we talk about the New York State Legislature, can we work in the word feckless regularly, please? And thank you. Carry on.
Fair enough. And so basically what that is it's became bigger than just our school district. It's all over our area, and even people from other states have joined, and we write letters that people can post and send to their school districts and their superintendents, and we find phone numbers and contact information for people, because that's half the battle for people, is they don't even know who to contact. We're paying taxes to people that, we don't even know who's in control. And so we help people find contact information, send them emails and letters that they can send to their school board and their superintendents. And yeah, so that's a really good group. A lot of people show up to a lot of different board meetings from that. And they're getting more active, and they're learning who the people are that are kind of sort of running things, because even the school districts don't run things. And a lot of people are realizing that too. It's the state that is dictating the school districts, which is zero local control. A lot of people don't realize those things either. What else am I doing besides, posting memes and talking
Memes
shit,
are
which is
awesome. I
yeah.
like memes. I find memes to be profound sometimes and entertaining. So guys, Paul, forgive me because I'm about to drop a little bit of a truth bomb as your introduction, okay? But I
Okay.
think that many people in New York State think that New York City is completely 100% tyrannical democratic action in process. And so they don't believe that there's any libertarians there. They don't believe that liberty works there. But I think that you have a message for everybody about that. Is that true?
That is true. Can y'all hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you. You're doing great.
So yeah, I mean, just even by the numbers, there's about 5,000 or so, give or take, libertarians in New York City. Now, by
Wow.
percentage of the city, that's a very that's a very low number. But it's not that the people aren't there. It's that, in all honesty, the party in the city until the last few years really hasn't. It's struggled to engage with those people. A lot there's thousands of those libertarians, but it's the same few that show up every time, and so that's been a problem that I think we've seen in a lot of counties, but where it's the same few people showing up all the time. But in New York City, that problem is very compacting because it's such a big city. So you kind of need to have a lot of people engaged a lot of the time if you want to be able to make the same level of impact that a lower number of people could make in a county that doesn't have, or a municipality that doesn't have millions of people. But honestly, there's a lot more of a libertarian spirit in New York City than a lot of people realize. I only moved here in the beginning of January. I used to live in Long Island. But as soon as I moved here, I realized something pretty interesting, that everyone here is in a constant state of breaking the law at pretty much all times, at least one or two laws, and that it's just such a normal part of being in New York City that everyone's constantly breaking the law, that I think a lot of the way that libertarians talk about issues and present themselves doesn't mesh in well with the way New York City approached itself, because the idea of non-compliance, just like, no one really complies with anything properly. It's really the people who are super engaged into politics as part of like interest groups or part of activist networks who end up being the ones that control the city council. And most of the city is just like, things are kind of working, it's good enough, and no one really cares about what happens. That's honestly what it is. We look at mayoral turnout, best we can hope for is like 50% usually. It's not a lot of people who end up voting.
I love the notion. I think we should explode that notion that people in New York City, every single time they take an action, are practically breaking one law or another, because there's so many stinking silly laws in that city that I just love it. And also it brings us to nullification, which, as you know, many libertarians are like, hey, just don't enforce those laws. And you see it on the federal level, you see it on the state level. If your favorite authoritarian decides that they want to prop up one group over another, they just say, well, we're not going to enforce that law. And well, we don't care about the Constitution. We're just going to go ahead and make this order. And hopefully it buys people enough time to, especially with the rent moratorium and eviction moratorium, like just damaging small business people in an amazing sense. So do we have a libertarian running for mayor in New York City? Is that possible?
Yes, we do. Stacey Pressman is running for mayor. We also have libertarians running, one for public advocate, Devin Balkind, running again, and he had gotten one of the best citywide percentages of a libertarian when he ran in 2017. We have John Tobacco, who is running as a libertarian and independent, not independence with a C, with a T, party candidate for comptroller, as well as various city council candidates.
All right. Well, listen, thank you. We got one more guy in here today, and it's my friend Frank Hand. Frank is tackling one of the toughest and most confusing issues out there, one of the most politicized issues out there. And it's an issue that's very near and dear to my heart and many other people's hearts. Okay. The issue that family court, let me put it in a libertarian perspective, is an authoritarian pile of garbage that literally ruins people's lives, regardless of what its intent is. How does summing it up, is that a fair summation?
That's accurate, Tim. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Right. My name is Frank Hand. We've got a lot of projects going on here in New York in regards specifically to our positions with family court. Family court is not a constitutional Article 3 court. They infringe upon our rights and our freedoms by a weaponized system that is perpetuated by attorneys and judges that have a financial motivation to tear apart families and keep families at odds against one another for profit for them. This is over a $50 billion industry that creates generational harm.
Hold up a second. I just want to. I want people to understand what you just said there. That this is over a $50 billion legal industry to have people who are raising children, who had children together, to keep them fighting. I don't think that. I think some of the people enmeshed in that system don't want to accept that that's what they're actually doing. But it's huge, huge money, financial incentives everywhere.
Absolutely. And this is per annum. Every year, it's on average 50 billion. So this is a deep swamp that steals property, and it stems into other areas of law too. Guardianship. I know an individual that was put onto guardianship because she was unwilling to participate in the system. There was another of
Hold up, I want to blow up another one. Like, I know you're the host of Dad Talk Today, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you just said she, right? Not he. I think that the issue of family court is not gender-based, it's authoritarian-based, and it's a lack of constitutionality. Would that also be fair? I know I'm interrupting you, I apologize, but I am passionate about your issue for sure.
Well, yes, that is accurate. Just to be transparent, I am not the host of Dad Talk Today. Dad Talk Today is with Eric Carroll. It's a dear friend of mine. Cash Jackson, who's a libertarian that ran out west, CJ Abernathy, and Anthony Sibeli and myself, we are founders of the Veteran Liberty Network. We had all come together to bring light and transparency into the judicial system of beyond the reasonable doubt in my mind, the judicial fraud that is taking place along with overreach. Between land grabs, between the guardianship and overreach, there's another woman down on the Upper East Side of New York City who's a pediatrician. She had her little girl, who was 4 years old, removed from her care, custody, and control for over 110 days for not wearing a mask when she brought her to school. Wow. So yes, we have heard issues in the past that it's a men's issue, but nowadays they're equally discriminating against whatever parents based on who makes a good faith allegation first, which triggers or is a mechanism to start the divide. Does that provide more clarity, Tim?
I think it does, and thank you. I do make certain assumptions. I apologize for misrepresenting who was the host of Dad Talk Today. But what I know is that you do things like find court watchers for people locally, and you do research on the financial interests of these things, and I think that all hands on deck when it comes to liberty and reality and disempowering the state. I think that those things are absolutely important. And guys, I want to do a couple shout outs. We got people out there. My friend Robert Force, guys, he was a victim of a property grab in upstate New York based on his political views. And I frankly cannot believe that he has not, there's no justice. Okay. He hasn't received any respect from people in charge. There hasn't been a real discussion by political power people about what happened to him. The only people talking about it are me and libertarians and Robert Force. And I guess maybe Bryan Stascavage might take a role. You want to say something about it, bud?
Yes, absolutely. So a few weeks ago, Robert Force and Tim Shore came and asked me if I'd like to take on this research project Just as a quick background for people who may not have heard this story or forget the details, in 2011, Robert missed his tax payment. 2012, he tried to pay them and he wasn't allowed because he had to pay them in reverse. In 2013, the county treasurer started proceedings to take his property. And what I found is that there's a very strong tension between the de jure law, which is as it is written, and the de facto law, which is as it is practiced. As it is written, they basically ruthlessly went after his property. As it is practiced, they violated what they had done in the past, which is try to keep people in their homes, give them a chance to pay, give them a chance to, try to get their finances straight. But for Bob Force, they just went after him as hard and fast as they could. And it's because he had a property that had no mortgage, which meant that once they grabbed it and they sold it, they had no other bank competing claim to it. And then after several court cases in which the county stood on the wall of, well, we did this, you missed all your deadlines, so you don't have a case here. And the cases were thrown out. Now, basically, the path forward that I can see is to replace the system, which is to get people into the positions of power who can actually do something to change. And Robert Force is a striking example of what happens when you have the wrong people in positions of power. And
in the words of Bryan LaRusso, who joined the show last week, better a new face than a two-face. And that's what we've got going on. I love that little line. Hey, we got Ryan Bedford out in the audience. Ryan is literally like the liberty evangelist. He's the bomb. He's a big fan of you, Victoria. What do you got any words you want to say to Ryan? He's a good guy. Let's get you back on to talking about your topics here. All right.
Hey, yeah, Ryan, great to see you. I can always depend on you to like some posts or to comment. It's always good to see you.
People underestimate the power of that little bit of interaction that keeps us going every day.
Yeah. Candidates need that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes, they absolutely do. So one of the things you're running on, and I'm going to put your website up, and if you want to tell people about it, I think now is the ideal time. All right. So direct democracy, you've got some really great ideas that's going to, I think, would shake up the system. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I haven't updated my website since the last campaign. And I want to talk about, the libertarian message, how people make fun of us. We just want freedom to be able to make very bad mistakes and to, take as many drugs as we want and not wear seatbelts and not wear helmets when we're on motorcycles. And
you say that like it's a bad thing. I don't.
Yeah. So I come, I come to the libertarian position not from the normal routes, but as a complex systems researcher. And the area that I work in is understanding how intelligent decisions are made in the brain. And so no intelligence is a top-down process at all. That is the definition of stupidity, when you have bureaucracy, coming up with some sort of algorithm for making decisions. And that's just the worst kind of decision making you can have. And that's what we have now with the public health department. We have very few people making decisions on very limited information. And the way you make good decisions is you allow everybody access to information, and you get as many inputs as you can, and you're able to correct faster. So that's why I'm in the Libertarian Party, because decentralization and decentralized decision making really results in much, much more intelligent decisions. And so, Tim, I feel like I tied my hands a little bit.
I know that I did, and I understand. I really do. But what I want to have happen is to have people reach out to you directly, and you and I can talk about those issues and kind of maybe present them in a different show.
Well, let's be very, very vague then.
Yeah, do vague. Go for it. There we go.
There we go. So, it isn't really a matter of your opinion about controversial subjects. People will say, "Oh, well, everybody has their right to their opinion, and they have a right to make their own decision."
Yes.
It is not. Right now, we're facing, because of so much censorship, facts are being censored that everyone needs access to in order to be able to make decisions. And so it's a very, very dangerous time in human history. And so I can't take the libertarian position of, I'm just against mandates. I'm against having, in full view of the facts. I have to say that the public health departments need to be taken down. And that's why we don't like these alphabet agencies. It's not because they restrict our freedom. It's because a small group of people can be corrupted, and you have a problem of regulatory capture. And so, what's the point of our freedom if not to protect our health? So, I'm not advocating for the freedom just to be able to do whatever the hell we want just because we should have freedom. I'm advocating for protecting public health by not concentrating power.
Fair enough. I think I do feel bad that I literally am censoring you, and I feel horrible about that. But I think that having this platform to even talk about it in vague terms is probably important. And we can't deny that Facebook and YouTube and Twitter all actively seek to limit certain types of discussion. And I think that that's absolutely something that you're pointing at. And I just want to be clear that I support the conversation. I want people reaching out to you directly to continue this conversation. And again, guys, it's all hands on the wheel. It's all hands on deck to help spread liberty. And there's little tiny things that you can do to help people like Victoria, like get her message out, and getting an understanding of this message is incredibly important. So let's go back and do a couple of comments. I'm going to kind of try to see. Jeanette basically agrees nobody should be able to do this. And thanks for being here, Jeanette. Jeanette's kind of my neighbor. She lives down the road from me, and that's wonderful. So Theresa, our buddy Rich Patel, we were talking about him before the show started. He popped in and said, have a good show all. And here he is heading out to do a highway cleanup event with the Appalachian Lions Club. And what else is Rich working on? Besides being, guys, a legislative affairs expert, he absolutely understands the impact of horrible legislation. We were whining, complaining, and trying to counteract the effects of the HEROES Act before they passed it. And guys, I suggest as a litmus test, if your representative voted for the HEROES Act, it's time for that clown to get removed. It's time to go. That guy should not win re-election, period. All right, so sorry, I got a little emotional there.
You were passionate. I was going to let you keep going. I mean, you were on a roll. And a lot of these topics we are really passionate about because, with libertarianism is individualism, and these things hit home. But to round back to Rich Patel, he is very active in the community. He is part of the Lions Club. He is running for county legislature, and he is part of Rotary. He is always doing some sort of volunteerism, which we all as libertarians support volunteerism. Yes. Instead of the state having to do things for other people, we should be naturally good people, which most people are. A lot of people on my committee and in my area, we prefer to help people versus them have to seek out any sort of support. We are a small community, and that's what we do. We help each other. We take care of each other. And Rich is sound proof of that. And like you said, he knows policy so good. He has written lots and lots of press releases on rent control. He's explained that to me because I didn't even understand it. I go to him all the time for concepts and policy that I just don't have a complete grasp on. And he's really good at kind of, like policy for idiots. And he will explain it to you. He knows these things. He would be very great for any position. But like I said, we have to build a base. We have to spread the message of liberty. We've got to share posts. We've got to, share these articles between each other. And to get off topic, one of the things that I was wanting to comment on about family court is I personally have seen how authoritarian they are for both men and women. I've seen it, and it's not a mom versus dad issue whatsoever. It is the state trying to have control, and it's money making. If you look at it, you have these publicly funded lawyers that get involved for each parent. You have the judges. You have the police officers at the court. You have the law guardians, or they're like a child advocate now, and then so many other things. Like, these are providing these people government paychecks, and the courts are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know if it's like this in your area, but in my area, they just keep expanding these courts because there's more court cases, because it's not even just parents fighting anymore, like, oh, mom is this, dad is that. No, it's literally, CPS. If you look at my page, abolish CPS, because their original intent was to protect children, but just like, conservatives never conserve anything, CPS is not really doing their job efficiently. And it's becoming, just kind of keeping government big and spending more taxpayers' money. And it's gotten out of hand. And I've seen it where, like a mom who created her own holistic formula for her child then had to go with her children's father to court and had her kids taken away. So this isn't mom versus dad issue. It's becoming a state versus the people issue, which is kind of the theme all around, whether it's family court, whether it's government spending, whether it's, vaccines and medical mandates and medical freedom. They all loop into each other. It's just the government is starting to become so big, so authoritarian. And once you start getting on one topic, it leads into another and another, and it stacks on top of each other. And that's why we have to be spreading the message of liberty. That's why we have to get people elected locally. And that's why we have to get policy on the table, or less policy out. It's hard to get less policy out, but a lot of times you have to create like gun sanctuary so we can have our gun rights now. And that's one of the things that I'm working on in Tioga County. So yeah, that's about Rich and kind of my little spiel about a lot.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you very much. So Rich did actually provide me with a statement. He's doing a highway cleanup project with the Appalachian Lions Club this morning. He has articles coming out, like you were saying, in multiple Tioga County publications, the Tioga County Courier and Owego Penny Saver, which criticize the county health department for doing all the wrong things regarding COVID-19. Local government should be cleaning up the messes caused by higher layers. Drug and alcohol addiction are up. Child obesity is up. We need a lot more safe testing done because the vaccines are, and he left off right there, or I didn't get all of it, but I think he basically agrees with Victoria, myself, and the rest of us. It is an issue of freedom, and that's a big deal. So Bryan posted in the private chat, hey, he's got a question for everybody. Let's just see what it is here. Go ahead, throw your curveball.
Okay, so I'm sure all of you are very much aware of this argument, and it's that in the United States, with the first past the post system, structurally, it's a two-party system. And therefore, having a third party historically from 1776 or 1783 and on, the third party historically has never, ever done well. Where the third party has done well is, in fact, when it has taken over one of the other two parties. And in my research, I found that a lot of Republicans are actually classical liberals like us, the classical liberal being the fancy term or the proper term for libertarian. So my question to the group is do you think it's more viable that the Libertarian Party instead tries to pull Republicans to its classical liberal roots rather than running third party? And I ask this also because after listening to Larry Sharp, this seems to be the tactic that he is taking as well.
First of all, I have an answer to that, but I think I want to hear from Paul Grindle first. What do you say, Paul?
So there's a few layers to what you propose there. There's the Republicans are really people from the right becoming more libertarian question. Then there's the pulling Republicans to be libertarian leaning, and then there's the third party invading a major party route. And I think that's probably the one that I understand the most where you're coming from on, and especially because that's what most third parties have done historically. That's correct. I mean, that's what the progressives and the Socialist Party ended up doing with the Democrats back at this point 100 years ago. That's what the farmer labor people did. You know, that's a common strategy. But it's only a common strategy if what your goal is to get certain specific policies changed, and your goal is to influence one of the parties to maybe change some of those policies. And you basically get them to do enough of it that you no longer are the unique voice and people don't care about your little third party anymore. The reason why I don't think that applies to the Libertarian Party as much is, one, a lot of stuff we care about goes so directly against the interests of the leadership of the Republicans and Democrats and the donor bases that control them, that it's a little bit of a different sell to get a Republican to support ending endless war and the surveillance state, particularly Republican leadership, than it is to get FDR to support more government subsidies. I think those are two different scope questions. Then the other one is the first past the post problem. And that pretty much leaves us with only the ability to run in local races where either we have a super popular local candidate or the cost per vote of running an election that's successful is low, or we do what they do in California, where they do a lot of nonpartisan elections. Like Jeff Hewitt, one of the highest level elected libertarians, one of the ways he does it, to be frank, is that he blurs the line between whether he's a libertarian or he's a conservative, and the races don't have the party label on the ballot. So, he's able to be your conservative choice, and on the ballot, no one sees anything. It's just the names. So we're limited basically to running the sorts of elections that we can win. But I think that if we win enough of those, we can start to influence policy around voting systems. Because once we can get to something like a ranked choice vote or any of these other fancy systems that voting reform fans know about, then we can start to win more elections. And other parties can sprout up too, because Libertarian Party is a coalition of a lot of different little, basically micro parties.
Yeah.
Paul, that's why we fight all the time.
Paul, you gave a great answer. I want to move on to. I was going to go to Mr. Van Helmond, but this what you just brought up falls right into Victoria's wheelhouse. Victoria, are you there? Do you want to comment on Bryan's question?
Well, I just put in I just linked to rankedchoiceny.org. It's an organization that I helped found. I've walked away from it because I've got other bigger fish to fry lately. But, that's great that we passed ranked choice in New York City. So it seems like, there's a real possibility we can pass it upstate New York too. But unfortunately, we don't have a ballot line, so there's no other third parties to rank. So whatever. Yeah, I mean, I would like proportional representation. I think that might be the way to go. So we have that everywhere else in the world, but in the United States.
All right, fair enough. William, first past the post problem. Are you familiar with it? Do you have an answer to Mr. Stascavage's question? Oh, hang on.
Okay, sorry.
You were muted.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I muted you.
I don't really have a direct question to it, but after hearing what Paul's answer was on how the Libertarian became a party of a coalition of many small parties, I'm actually trying to do that with other third parties out in Suffolk. And the main purpose is to get enough people in certain areas that you can win elections, although it might not be total libertarianism. I'd rather do that than sell out on a Wilson Pakula to put a libertarian up where I have to make an arrangement as a county chairman with the county chairman of the Republican or Democratic one. I'd rather not deal with them at all because I don't trust them, period. They are, to me, evil people, and I'd rather form a coalition with other small groups with common interest and basic common grounds that I'm experiencing, uniting and creating a stronger force of unity. To bring into like a trustees in Suffolk County, the smaller elections, and maybe even a council position. And once you get some of those won, you can get in the policy directly through that candidate. It might be a libertarian supported Green Party candidate, let's say, or Sam's party, and I'm actually working with Frank McKay a little bit with the Independence Party. Which would be huge because they have a large volume. But in certain instances, we have been successful in Suffolk. We had Super Dinker. She ran for a libertarian. She ran for library trustees position and won. And she is now in. We got some people that I'm going to try to focus on for school board elections to get them in, get the libertarian values in. Although they're not really partisan or political entities that run for it, you can run a libertarian, that has the values of the party for these positions, and that also gets the name out and helps us when we run for the political spectrum. Even though I know I'm going to get slaughtered as a write-in candidate, the thing is, again, in another year, I ran for state assembly and I actually did very well. I had about 1,200 votes, and there was only 73 libertarians in my district. It's just about getting the message out, letting people see the party. In Suffolk County, before I ran, nobody knew what a libertarian was. And to be quite honest, Tim, and keep your mouth shut, buddy, I didn't even know what a libertarian was 3 years ago until I met Mr. Paul Grindle and I got screened because the previous chairman, God rest his soul, Mr. Michael McDermott, reached out to me and said he can help me. And he can help me have my constitutional rights. And that meant something to me. And that's what I bring forward. And I think my passion and compassion on how I present myself when I walk the streets helps the party every day. It's never a loss. My father taught me something very important when I was younger, and it never applied to me until I ran for politics 4 years ago. You never lose. You either learn something or you win. Right? So, I mean, there's never a loss in promoting liberty as a grassroots outreach on the streets, as a chairman, as a state committee person, as another candidate that's actually blessed to be on the ballot. It's a representation for all of us in a unified manner. And although the Libertarian Party might be small in New York State at this time, that will change. Because we are big in other, caches. I mean, they're winning elections, and we have state members on assembly and stuff like that there. And if they can do it there, we can do it here. And you have to have that go-to I can attitude, regardless of the obstacles, because every time you make something positive happen, another person sees that. And I got outreach by Mike McDermott, and the first person I met was Mr. Paul Grindle. And you want to talk about a blessing and a great way to meet a party. Thank you, Paul. Can't thank you enough. You and I had an interview for almost 4 hours at Goldberg's in Riverhead.
That was crazy, yeah. The caffeine really hit hard in the middle of that interview.
It was a momentum life changer for me, Paul, and that's why I do what I do in this party, because Paul believed. And Paul showed me that. And then I met Mr. Larry Sharp, and I saw how he believed. And that made me believe more. And then Mr. Michael McDermott, who wanted me to succeed him, he believed. And he showed me that. And now it's my turn to show people to believe.
Yeah, look, I also want to blame Paul Grindle for something.
Pretty good.
I actually joined up with the Libertarian National Party and stepped outside of New York State. I made that donation. And I just want everybody to know that Paul Grindle was the guy that actually helped sway me into that decision. And guys, guess what? It was only $60, and now I get like all sorts of mail and emails from them that I don't read. But it's still your fault, Mr. Grindle. I want to be honest
You
about
mean
that.
you mean one
My
of
my
these?
apologies.
I think I
I'll
might
never
get
do it
that.
again.
Yeah. So Theresa, first past the post problem. What do you think? What do we do about it? And again, like I have a really good answer, but I want to hear from everybody about the first past the post problem. This issue of the third parties historically are unsuccessful.
Well, I think we've got to help people get out of this party loyalty mindset. People love their parties more than they love their favorite baseball team, you know. And don't get me wrong, if you already didn't hate me, I'm a Red Sox fan, but I don't have loyalty to, you know, a party like that. I have loyalty to my principles, and I think people, you know, they want to support their favorite politician, and so we got to show people how this isn't sports, this isn't entertainment, this is people's daily lives that we're talking about. If you want to be a Giants fan, perfectly fine, whatever. I don't know the players, I don't do football, but politics is personal, politics is important, it's not entertainment. It affects lives tremendously, it affects their property, it affects everything. And so we've got to get people out of this party loyalty mindset and teach them about individualism. I think it just boils down. I'm big on outreach. You have to educate people. A lot of people don't even know what a libertarian is. You say you're a libertarian and they're like, a liberal what? And I'm like, a libertarian. They're like, oh, you're a liberal. I'm like, no. Oh, well, what is it? And so you have to like back that down and then they're like, you're a Republican. I'm like, hold on, not quite.
Hold up.
No, hold the phone. No. And so we've just got to keep outreach. We've got to keep teaching people that, because a lot of these people have never seen a life that isn't state controlled as well. So you start telling them like, you can have freedom here. Well, how would I solve this problem? Well, like Larry Sharp does. And one of the things that I love about Larry is, you know, people are so afraid of freedom, and because they're like, well, what about this problem? Well, there's a solution to that. This, and they're like, oh, I could control that. Well, yeah, you could. So it's about education and outreach, and let's stop promoting these politicians like superheroes, because at one point, like if you look historically, you know, like articles in the newspaper were talking about how corrupt politicians are and always making jokes about that, and never trust a politician. They're all dirty. You know, they were equated to worse than a lawyer, you know, in the 1800s and, you know, early 1900s. So we've got to kind of get back to that, get back to the people, and stop this party loyalty bullshit. It's not healthy. If you want a team to support, pick a sport you like. And I think that's where we start, you know, having more faith in our principles than these politicians, which are just in it for more power. All of them, every single one of them.
All right. So Frank, what do you think? First past the post problem, Libertarian Party as a solution or a continuation of that problem? What do you think?
Well, I think we're in a wonderful time right now to reposition the Libertarian Party. I'm going to start off by saying the indigenous Native Americans, they say that the Republicans and the Democrats, you've got the left wing and the right wing. However, it's the same bird. The system has been intentionally set up by players, by large donations with the super PACs to only support one or the other. This is America. We're supposed to have freedom and liberty. However, the choices that are out there, it's either Home Depot or Lowe's. It's McDonald's or Burger King. It's Coke or Pepsi.
I love it.
Republican or Democrat. Well, just a few weeks ago, I had a special invitation to go up to Albany to sit on a meeting with the Commissioners Board for Elections. Was anybody else in this panel up in Albany for the Commissioners meeting?
I don't think so.
Well, I'll communicate the message that was going on up there. They did speak about ranked choice voting and bringing that to the state of New York. They spoke about having third-party lines. they're making a big push to incorporate third-party lines on the ballots coming up, which quite frankly put a smile on my face to hear, because possibly if there is any integrity here, now that will open up the door to allow a libertarian or an independent to come in and possibly have a larger voice as far as the financials and the voice can be put out there and not suppressed through the Democratic controlled media. The last line item that they were discussing up there was election fraud. And I'm not an expert on it, and I'm not going to make a good faith allegation, because I believe in substantive documentation that is clear and convincing before an allegation is made. However, they are speaking about using ID and cross-checking it with the name and address of the individual, along with a picture of that person, to possibly prevent multiple voting in other counties and or different addresses and going down the line. So I would love to believe moving forward that there is an opportunity here for all of us that probably never wanted to get into politics but have been affected by what has been going on. And this is why we are at the position of around 6 o'clock on the dot, if you look at it as a clock, where the other two sides are polarized. And for every little bit of traction one side gets, we lose liberty on the other side.
I love it. I've wrestled with this first past the post thing several different times. I have kind of I want to say kind of a polished answer, but historically, right, the biggest success, the Republican Party wasn't the Republican Party. It started around the time of the Civil War. And the bottom line is that they said our principles are more important, and people joined those principles. So that's number one, right? Number two, the Working Families Party destroyed the Independent Democratic Commission in upstate New York. They used Cuomo as a hatchet, and it worked perfectly, flawlessly. So that's number two. Number three, when I look at the Republicans and the Democrats, both of them, almost all of them, love state power more than anything else. They go there, they signal their virtue, they make tons of money, even down to the lowest elected offices in our area. They serve the state, not their constituents. They serve the state. Okay, they're done serving us. They're done listening to us. Every time we say something, we're written off as lunatics, all of us. Okay, so as a part of my philosophical purity, as a part of me not being involved particularly in politics, this is my only way. I will not join a party or a plan that has been corrupted and try to change them. Either they come to smart people and intelligent and caring and proactive people like us, or I don't know what the answer is after that. But the first past the post problem is not a problem for me. My philosophical integrity, my you can't solve all the problems with government, my overtaxation, especially in New York State, is driving people away. The virtue signaling, the authoritarianism, all of those things cannot be solved by the framework of the two-party system. It's like Frank was saying, it's McDonald's or Wendy's or McDonald's or Burger King. Everybody's saying there's only two choices. I don't even do that to my kids. My kids don't get two choices. They get three. If they present me with a conundrum, I say, they want to say either or, because that's how they're programmed. That's how school programs them. That's how it goes. Okay. I say, find a third solution. It doesn't have to be either or, and it may still be wrong, but at least think it through. Okay. Find something else. So, and Tim Shore, you're not chopped liver. Tim Shore is the guy that started the back in the day. I don't know if you guys remember this, but they were totally corrupted. The co-opted. The Tea Party Republicans were totally co-opted by the machine. And this is the perfect example of trying to take over a party and getting crapped on. All right. They eventually got co-opted. They got outmaneuvered if they were too conservative. And guys, one more point. Conservatives, I got here from the conservative area of politics. Okay. When has, in any kind of important race, when has your Republican nomination been different than the conservative nomination? You have become, and guys, I've talked to Gerard Gosart very minorly. I'm not trying to say he's my buddy, but the issue is that never happens ever, and they pull
It
dirty
does in
tricks.
Suffolk. Sometimes.
Go ahead, Paul. You carry it on, man. Carry it on.
Don't worry. Sometimes it gets worse in Suffolk, and they'll cross-endorse the worst of the Democrats, actually, on the conservative line.
Happened in Hartwick, New York.
It's how they control the judicial system and the DA's office and the sheriff's office in Suffolk County. The conservatives and the Democrats have this little dirty system where the conservatives will back the Democrats' nominees for sheriff and for DA, and then the Democrats put in some conservative nominees on their line for their Supreme Court nominations and local nominations. It's a great system if you ignore the ethics and the consequences. It works like a charm. D plus C that's a lot of votes in Suffolk County.
Actually, if I may, real quick with Suffolk County, I believe it was on Tuesday, I was at a legislative meeting out at the 4th Precinct of the police department where they were attempting to push through 20 new bills out there. Suffolk and Nassau County are very interesting. They're on an island, or I call it a peninsula. However, Congressman Lee Zeldin out in his district and backyard over there, he's provided over $10.5 billion over the past 2 years for MS-13, which is a gang, for the opioid crisis, and for human trafficking, where Suffolk and Nassau rank in the top 20 in the United States for human trafficking. However, there's been some heinous crimes out there. The newest one in the news is Gabby here, who comes from that area as well. Justina Valva, she had her 8-year-old autistic son murdered by her ex-husband, New York City transit cop Michael Valva. Kira Franchetti, her little girl was murdered by the father. I find it fascinating that the two highest paid police departments in New York State and also the nation have these heinous problems and issues going on out there in Lee Zeldin's backyard. Money is being thrown at them. I'll repeat the number because it's extremely imperative and important. $10.5 billion has been sent out to Suffolk and Nassau to correct these issues.
It almost seems like it's by design, doesn't it, brother?
I totally agree with you. And if you follow the money and look at where the grants go, well, they're not being appropriated properly. For example, there's one domestic violence shelter out there that has 14 beds. How, if you have all this money? And furthermore, I'm not a fan of that term domestic violence. Yes, there are victims, but domestic violence is not a penal law. Assault, harassment, stalking, those are laws that are already on the books. Domestic violence is another word or chain of words that was manufactured by attorneys to become more descriptive.
And point their finger. I can wrestle with that same issue. I apologize for jumping in there, but go ahead.
That's okay. I mean, assault is assault. It doesn't matter if there is an affinity relationship or not in my mind. But it's a way that these individuals are painting a narrative to manipulate statistics to trigger funding. Yet again, it comes down to overreach and painting a picture into what may or may not be happening. There's way too much government and the ABC agencies out there that lack proper qualifications. For example, with CPS or the Administration of Children and Services, these social workers are only required to have 24 college credits within their bachelor's. They are not specialized individuals that do now have the power that affect our families. They can split up our families and then traffic them for profit through the courts or adoption or however they see fit. Yeah. I don't recall ever agreeing or consenting to let the state of New York and or these agencies any sort of power and control or consent over my family, my children, or
They
any
don't
of my
care
business.
about your consent. They
Exactly.
don't care about your consent. Okay. They care about their power and how to maintain it. So, guys, I didn't mean to cut you off, Frank, but here's the deal. We're coming up on an hour. I want to give everybody some parting comments and handle some more questions. And guys, William Van Helmond had to drop off. He kept getting kicked out by, honestly, it's a conspiracy. That Suffolk County Spectrum is obviously doesn't want William Van Helmond speaking his mind on the internet. That's absolute fact. I'm just kidding. I'm a conspiracy theorist. You guys all know that. So I had a blast. Let's start with Victoria Alexander. I'll try to remember the order. Victoria, you got closing comments, closing calls to action. What do we got going on?
Yeah, the only thing that's coming out of this conversation is why can't libertarians talk about certain things?
Yes, you're mad at me. I understand. I don't blame you. 100. I don't blame you. I get it. We can have a side conversation and figure out if there's an effective way to talk about what you want to talk about. All right. Do you forgive me?
Not yet. No.
I can hear it in your voice, man. I get it.
We
We're
need
gonna have
to
a
stick
little
to facts.
controversy.
If we stick to facts, we're good. I mean, opinions are no good. Facts work, though.
I agree with you. And I think that there's enough facts that we can do a side show if you want to. I'll have you on my radio show. They can't stifle what you say on the radio. They can knock out my Facebook page, and that's what I'm slightly concerned about. Let's see. Theresa, what do you got? You've got to unmute. Go ahead. Yep. Hold on. I'll unmute you. You have to unmute.
I pressed it, and then I think you pressed it. So we were working
Probably
against each other there. Just really, you've got to start. Just start spreading the message. Start living the principles. Be the party of principles. To hit on what Paul said, people who are hardline in their parties, we'll have people that fall off. We need to create a safe space for them. But the people who are party loyal, they're not going to come to us. We can't take over another party. It's not going to work. People have to start getting active. And we as libertarians have to stop being so get off my lawn. We have to start being leaders. We have to start doing that. If we just stick to ourselves, and that's part of the problem, is because we don't want to interfere with other people. So most of us are business owners. Most of us have a lot going on because most libertarians are pretty ambitious people in their own lives. But we have to start taking leadership positions. We have to start running for office. We have to start getting on school boards. We have to start getting on nonprofit boards. We have to start being those leaders so we can live those principles. So I encourage everybody that watches the show. I know everybody that I know here, like Paul and Tim and William, as you guys are already leaders in your own right.
Some of those things sound so annoying to me, Teresa. I'm not
I
gonna
know.
lie.
I know.
I'm not doing any of that.
But
My brain
get off my
exploded at a
lawn.
school
I get
board
it.
meeting.
I get it, but the only way we're going to show people that libertarianism works is living it and being that volunteerist and being that leader and empowering other people to be leaders as well. We've got to start doing that. So that's my message to everyone.
All right, Frank, you're up. What do you got, man?
A strategic shock and awe campaign. Right now, the world is primed. Absolutely. Cuomo just got out due to false allegations. I can't speak to whether it was true or not, but false allegations removed him from office. COVID has treated everybody in this world like a non-custodial parent, isolated, dependent. We can utilize these to our advantage. Speak about issues that the other sides, the other aisles, are not speaking about. They continuously regurgitate the same issues without providing solutions. However, let's get them off their comfortable script. It's time to speak about the issues that affect the common, everyday, working individual. Throw that curveball. Hold them accountable for their lack of actions and or force them to provide a position, a solid position of holding their feet to the fire, one way or the other, so that the New Yorker can make an educated decision. Expose them, show their track record of what they actually have done. And is this truly in the best interest of a New Yorker? Are they truly representing their communities, or are they harming their communities? Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. One of the issues that I want to point out is that they are exposed. They're exposed as hypocrites. They are exposed as not caring about their constituents. And so, what we're doing, these baby steps, these positive, proactive steps, absolutely is the way to go. Mr. Stascavage, you're next. Paul Grindle's gonna take us out of here.
Well, thank you, thank you very much, Tim, for putting this together. I hope to be back. As I mentioned at the start of the show, I'm a writer. I like doing investigative journalist type stuff. If you have anything that you think that needs to get out there, just drop me a line, one way or the other. I have Proton Mail, all that sort of stuff. So I can't wait to be back, and it was fascinating hearing all of you. Thank you so much.
I feel like that I can see that Frank is going to be reaching out to you in about 5 minutes. He has story after story, and I hope Victoria also reaches out to you because she has story after story. And when she says she has facts on her side, she does. I know she's mad at me. I want her to forgive me. Go to her page and ask her to forgive me. Paul Grindle, what do you want to say to take this show out?
That if you're looking to try to make libertarian changes, to just do it. There's a lot of haranguing back and forth about who has which position within the internal party structure, which person does which has which nominal leadership title. But the honest reality is that right now we're a tiny party with not a lot of seats, and a state that's running wildly out of control, even by completely non-libertarian standards. Honestly, if you want the Libertarian Party or the Libertarian movement to do something, just do it and find some people and just make it happen. And then the whatever formal stuff within the movement happens afterwards is just the secondary stuff. That's the way it has to be. Otherwise it's going to be another however many years of people arguing about internal fighting stuff. And if you have problems with people in the movement or with groups or whatever, be forward about them, but also just move on and do your other stuff too. Because I've seen a lot of people who I might agree with their concerns about things, but it's like nothing happens. But then thankfully, and I think in large part that's because a lot of here, because of Larry, at least involved in the New York Party, we are trying to get things done and move things forward. And that's the only way to move forward.
All right, guys, we're gonna knock off. I guess I get the closing words. Gatekeepers, go away. Be like Paul Grindle. If you have time, go to the Speedy Fest down in Broome County. Say hello to Thomas Daniel Queter. Larry Sharp himself, the man, the myth, the legend, is going to be there at around 4:00. These are things that you can do to spread liberty that are actually kind of fun. All right. And thank you for joining the show. I appreciate all of it. I appreciate all you people. John McLaughlin, I might not have mentioned you. You've been to so many of these shows and made so many great comments. Thank you. Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Tim Shore. Thank all of these guys on this panel. We are going to go have a day. See you later, man. Take care.
See y'all later.